professionals, business personnel throughout the whole Capital District that basically came in with a blueprint for recovery to turning the county finances around and to making us healthy again. And I have to say, I thank Jim Barber, the CEO of Albany Med, who after January when I took office decided, he said, "County Executive, can we stay on for another 8 months and continue to help you?" And I said yes. And I have to tell you, we have turned the corner of a lot of things. And I take pride in it. The last 2 years of being under the cap, and looking forward to being under the cap again next year for 3 solid years in a row. That means 0% for this year, and we were under the cap last year at 1.6, and we're looking forward to trying to be at 0 again next year. 3 years. But we also settled every union contract. We doubled our reserves in the last 3.5 years. But the thing I take pride in the most is we didn't use one-shots. We didn't use gimmicks. We didn't use reserve funds. We didn't raise your taxes to pay off our $15 million. But for the first time in 6 years, we are not borrowing TAN's money. We're not going out to borrow money. We paid that debt off by basically chopping a little at a time and taking it down. That's the fun part of the job. Partnerships, bringing Schenectady Community College in downtown Albany for inner city kids to give them an opportunity. Give them an opportunity to expand their education. And not just in the inner cities, but the whole capital region, and especially Albany County, to give them the opportunity. We brought companies in from Glens Falls. We brought companies in from Lake George. They're renting space at 112 State Street, taking rent in, doing things differently. And I stand here proudly to announce one of the things I want to do mostly is be the greenest county in New York State. A couple months ago, we announced that we had the Energy Star for 112 State Street. We did a whole comprehensive study of every building in Albany County to look at ways of doing things differently. We had to change the way we had the model of government to make it work for the people, to give them the opportunity that you all deserve. We had to put down the building blocks. The foundation had to be laid for the future of our children and their children to live here in a quality of life. We've taken on so many different programs. We've been on a national awards left and right, and not just for what we've done on trains, the bomb trains that come through our ports every day. I got a minute left. But by taking a stance and holding them accountable. We have legislation introduced by Assembly Fahey to help change the way they regulate oil coming through our back doors. We also have a variety of other programs that we have done. The first Veterans Identifier at DSS that serviced 246 veterans. Think about that. We also got an award last year from the state of New York for saving $2 million in fraud on welfare. These are things we had to do differently. Hard decisions had to be made about the nursing home. We took an $18 million deficit and knocked it down to $4 million. We're losing $1 million a month at the nursing home. The model had to change. We were putting a Band-Aid on a trauma wound. And now we are going to have that GEMA facility that I grew up with in Albany County that everyone fought to put their loved ones into. We invested $300,000 in new equipment at the nursing home. We're investing new things all the time and starting new programs. Thank you. I had to stop.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, and I should have warned you, we do have a timekeeper out front, and she did, and I should have warned you, gentlemen, we do have a timekeeper, and they will remind you when your time is expiring. Mr. Egan?
Thank you, Bernie. I'm Dan Egan, and I'd like to serve you as your next Albany County Executive, and I welcome the opportunity tonight to earn your support. I want to thank the sponsors, the Albany branch of the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, 100 Black Men, the Council of Albany Neighborhood Associations, the Capital Area Council of Churches, and A Village. This is a great service to the public, and I thank you for hosting tonight. We're starting with the right question. We're starting with why. Why is always the most important question. Why do we have county government at all? Why are the two of us here wanting to be your next county executive? Why? I hope tonight that we discuss a lot of policy questions and have some good, deep, productive discussions on the nursing home, on taxes, on services to the elderly, on all the full range of county services. But I want to talk to you about why. County government exists to take care of the most vulnerable people in our community. Another way of saying that is, county government at its best is about taking care of each other. That's why we're here. About 7 years ago, I ran for Albany School Board, and people asked me then, why are you running? And there's a lot of reasons, but what it really came down to is one little boy. I was on Sheridan Avenue one day, and I saw a little guy about this tall coming out of his front door. And that house that he was coming out of was falling apart. It was derelict. It had a broken window and it had broken steps. So here's this little guy getting up in the morning to go to school, and the first step out of his home, he's got a challenge that he should not have to face because nobody was maintaining that building. We'll talk a lot tonight about the needs of this community, but I just want to say, and we all know this, there's a lot of people hurting. And as long as there's people hurting, there's hard work to do. And I learned growing up hard work. It's pretty much all I learned. If you'd talked to me when I was 13 years old and asked me who's pitching for the Yankees or how's the record for the Giants, I wouldn't have known. But I could have told you how to pour concrete. I could have framed a wall. I could wire a circuit. I could fix the car. Because when I got home from school, my dad would say to my brother and me, here's a shovel, or here's a wrench, or here's a hammer, let's get to work. And that's what we did, we worked. I learned that work ethic, and I'm going to work hard for you and for everybody in this county who's hurting. And I'm looking forward to a good forum tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. For our first question, I'll remind the candidates you have 2 minutes to respond. You might want to turn your mics on. The first question is, and I'll put this to you first, Mr. Egan, since you went last in the opening. What are your personal reasons for running for this office? What do you see as the most important task as a county executive?
Thank you, Bernie. I've talked a bit, I guess, about my most personal reason. It's about work. It's about service. I've raised 5 children. My daughter's here tonight, so if you want to ask her how I did, go ahead. She'll tell you the truth. She is. I served my country in the Army National Guard. I was an infantry officer. I was a scout platoon leader. I was a platoon leader when I was still a teenager. 3 years later, I had an award-winning platoon. I had the #1 scout platoon in the 42nd Infantry Division. We had the #1 PT scores in our battalion, and we had the #1 rifle squad in our battalion. And at the end of those 3 years, I had a waiting list of soldiers who wanted to get into my platoon. So you don't get that kind of performance out of people by bullying them or by being a bad guy. You do it by leading. And my concept of leadership is very simple, and that is that you put the mission first. At Albany County, the mission is the people, the good of the people. We talked about that a minute ago. The second thing is the people you work with. And the last thing, always the last thing, is the leader themselves. And if you can do that, then you can be a leader. I've tried to be a leader in my life. Not perfect, but I've tried. I think it's important when people are hurting, when we need good jobs, job opportunities, job training, when we need an economy that's going to work for everyone, not for the select few. When we've got a workforce that's under siege, when we've got teachers under siege, when we've got a state government that's not treating this community the way it ought to, then we need leadership that's devoted to serving people. That's why I want to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, I'll repeat the question. What are your personal reasons for running for this office? What do you see as the most important task as a county executive?
It was about leadership in 2011 when I decided to run, because I saw, again, as I said earlier, we're at a crossroads. Difficult decisions had to be made to move this county forward. and it needed leadership. And we had to right the ship. We had to change the cohesiveness of a workforce that had not had a raise, and contract unions weren't settled, and doing more with less. We have 26 departments in the county, do a variety of services, 310,000 residents that we delivered crucial services from, from speech pathologists to OT to transportation of special needs, but not just probation and health and DCYF and everything else, but we needed to let the community know we're a partner. And in a partnership, we can move any organization further. And that's what we did with Lawson's Lake, with a partnership with Sheriff Apple's office, District Attorney Soares' office, the three of us coming together and making it happen, working with the unions. We worked with every trade and private company, and we had 500 volunteers on 9/11 for AmeriCorps out there painting, opening it up, and bringing a gem back to the county. But that's where leadership comes into play. You have two branches of government. I spent 12 years in the legislature. I know that function. In the last 3.5 years, or 3 years and 8 months now, as county executive. You're going to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we work for the people, and they deserve leadership. They deserve good decisions, but they also deserve 0 tax increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'm going to invite those of you who are standing in the back, if you have no seats, you can come up and sit here. Now, you won't get a good FaceTime with the candidates, but you'll certainly hear what's going on and you'll be more comfortable. So if you choose to, you can come and be seated anywhere up in here. This next question is going to be put to you, Mr. McCoy, first. What is your proudest achievement in public service?
My proudest moment in county government is right in the financial difficulties that we're in after this Great Recession, was creating opportunities for people in this county to have jobs. It was about getting more fund balance in there, but taking the $15 million and getting rid of that over the last 3 years has not been an easy task without using one-shots, without raising taxes, and without going into the reserves. But we did that. That's the challenges that I like. I like coming up with new ideas in this job, but not using your tax money to make this happen. So to me, like opening up the lake and bringing a college into downtown Albany and different companies is about giving opportunities, being creative, like with the land bank, investing $1.5 million to stop the blight, to give more people a reason to come into the city, to create more tax base, but more opportunities for little stores along the corners to reopen up and have people there to shop in their stores. That's what I take a lot of pride in.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, I'll repeat the question. What is your proudest achievement in public service?
Thank you, Bernie. My proudest achievement, of course, is seeing my kids grow up, but in public service, my proudest achievement is the Gleaning program. This is something that we started about over 20 years ago in upstate New York. Many of you may not know this, but about 20% of all the food that's grown on farms in the United States is never even harvested. A lot of reasons for that I don't have time to get into, but we did something about that because, as you all know, there are people hungry right here in Albany County, right here in this neighborhood, on this street. There are people who do not have enough to eat. There are kids who come to school hungry. They haven't had breakfast. Okay, so what we did is got together a group of volunteers and inmates from some prisons and made arrangements with farmers, and we went into those fields and we harvested fresh vegetables, top quality food, and we freeze-dried it at a couple of prisons and trucked it all over New York State. A lot of people, when they heard this idea, they said, well, that's impossible, Dan, that'll never work. Nothing's more fun than when somebody says something's impossible and then you go do it. So the first year we did that program, we were just kind of getting organized, and we did about 10,000 pounds worth of food. The second year we did over 100,000, and the third year we were over 1 million pounds of fresh produce to food pantries and soup kitchens all over New York State. It was innovative, it was very low cost, it was one of the cheapest sources of food for food banks and soup kitchens all over the state. It's still being done locally. I'm very proud of that. Decades later, The local food bank, the regional food bank in northeastern New York, here in Latham, actually has a 15-acre farm where they grow their own vegetables. Same concept. So that's my proudest achievement.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Since we're toggling back and forth, you have this next question first as well. Mr. Egan, how do we create more opportunities for economic development in our county?
We need a lot of time to talk about that. That's a great question. I think it's the most important question. I think county government runs a lot of social services programs, but the most important social service program, the best one, is a good job. And that's what we need to do. And the county hasn't done much on that. And so what happens is a lot of kids graduate from high school or fail to graduate from high school, and they have no options. And there are thousands of people looking for jobs locally. There are also a lot of businesses who don't want to do business anymore. You know, I was talking to a fellow last week who told me he won't bid on jobs for Albany County anymore. He said, it doesn't matter when I have the best bid, it doesn't matter if my quality is the best, if I haven't paid off the right guy, then I don't get the job. So, that's what he said.
We ask that you confine yourself to how do we create economic development.
We start by making sure that things are transparent, honest, and open, that when we have bid opportunities, that they're done in public, that everything is done fair and square. That's first. Second, we start a large-scale apprenticeship program for kids here, young people, so that they can learn the building trades. I think it would be terrific. We've got hundreds of vacant buildings that are decaying right now. A lot of them are vacant. The county owns a lot of them. The land bank's a good start, but we can do a lot more with renovations, and we can train people to do those jobs. They're good, high-paying jobs. We can add a business incubator to make sure that they can start their own businesses. We can also do a lot more to support small businesses, the mom and pop businesses. You know, Troy's doing some great stuff, and we can learn a lot from them. So that's what we need to do. Stop giving away our tax base to very large businesses who don't necessarily need them. You know, the governor right now is negotiating with GE on that subject, and I see the stop sign.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, I'll repeat the question. How do we create more opportunities for economic development?
When I became county executive in 2012, our unemployment rate was roughly around 7.9. If I am off a little bit, I apologize. But as of today, it's at 4.8. We've created over 10,000 new jobs in Albany County in the last 4 years. 14 new companies have made home in the last probably 15 months in this county. If you look down at what's going on in Queens Ravine at the port down there, we just did another ribbon cutting for 2 other new companies that are opening up and hiring. With the partnership of bringing Schenectady Community College in downtown Albany, is to really enhance and give kids an opportunity to say, you know, it's not like a traditional college, but it gives them an opportunity to go in, and now with this new casino going in Schenectady, it gives them an opportunity to say, hey, I can be a dealer. I can go into this restaurant hospitality, or I can do something there where I'm going to get a job making $50,000 a year. That's what it's about, giving the opportunities to people, laying the foundation. Just like this AAU that we just did this great announcement with Sheriff Apple in my office, and the first of its kind in New York State and first of its kind in this nation, is giving the building blocks for kids. We said not every kid that goes through sports, 99.99, are never going to make it to be a major athlete. But we can make good citizens out of them and give them that foundation to go on. That's what this job's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Thank you, Mr. McCoy. And this question is put to you, Mr. McCoy, first. What have and will you do to break the cycle of poverty?
You know, microphone. It goes back to programs and partnerships with the community. You know, that's one of the reasons why I hired Larry Rosen to bring him in, about 2-tier justice system, one for the rich and one for the poor. You know, we have to start by representing people fairly, but we have to give them the opportunities to say all this great stuff's in front of you. You just got to take advantage of it. There's different programs, like I said, with the AAU and other things that we've laid out with Schenectady Community College in partnership and with all the trades, from the laborers, the operating engineers, and giving them opportunity. Not every kid's gonna grow up to be a nuclear scientist. Not every kid's gonna grow up to be president of the United States. But find that niche and let's give them that niche to make them work forward, to give them an opportunity of something they've never had before. We started an internship program when I was in the legislature chair, and we brought high school students in, not college, to give them exposure to a variety of different departments, to give them that opportunity to sit there and say, hey, you know what? I never thought of going in this field, but now I will. And that's the same thing we do now. Doing the first, we expanded our youth services and our youth program, and we have these kids go through all of our departments, and we help them when we mentor them when they go to college, and we give them internship while they're in college and try to pay them. That's how you're going to break this. It's partnering not just within government, with every nonprofit organization, or every church, rolling up our sleeves and figuring out how we best can break into a community and show these kids there's an alternative for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, I'll restate the question. What have and will you do to break the cycle of poverty?
Breaking the cycle of poverty is about three things: jobs, jobs, and jobs. That's all. That's what we need. We need strong economic development, but we need it for everyone, for the broad base. There's a lot we can do there. What I have done in the past, I spent 6 years volunteering on the Albany School Board, put in a lot of hours. Education, of course, is key to getting better jobs. So that's what I've done in the past. But what we need to do moving forward is expand that jobs base and make sure they're good jobs. There's honor and dignity in any job, in any work. But we want to make sure people have meaningful work, and we want to get started on a 21st century economy. What we have right now is a 20th century economy attached to a 19th century government. But we need a 21st century economy. We need to go big on solar. The age of fossil fuel is ending. Whether we like it or not, whether we plan it or not, it's happening. So why not put our young people to work on solar, on building renovations, on putting in high-efficiency boilers in some of our older buildings, on renovating windows, putting in insulation. There's so much work to be done. Anybody who has an old house knows that. You see the abandoned buildings. Again, there's so much work to be done. We need to train people in those jobs. We need to mentor them to make sure they have all the skills they need. We need to support those small businesses. Somebody asked me the other day, Dan, why should I stay in Albany? Troy is friendly to small business. Why should I stay in Albany? I said, please stay in Albany. And they said, well, give me a reason. Well, these are the reasons. We need to make it easier for people to have a business in Albany and stop giving away our tax base.
I've been asked to explain why I interrupted one of the responses, and that is what we're trying to do here is to have a very, very dispassionate discussion of the issues, and we're asking the candidates to confine their responses to the issues that are raised in your questions. So that's why I interrupted, and I apologize if I offended anyone. This next question is going to you, Mr. Egan, first, and I hope I'm interpreting this correctly. It's rather lengthy, so listen up. Today's news conference and check presentation fulfills the $1 million investment by the county. I assume, is that the land bank? I'm not sure. Okay. And it says 86% of vacant and abandoned properties exist in distressed communities. Where is the memorandum of understanding or community benefits agreement? If there isn't one, will either one of you commit to having one? You first, Mr. Egan. Yes, sir.
I know it's long, but
I'm sorry, I'll say it again. Today's news conference and check presentation fulfills the $1 million investment by the county. I believe this is correct. I'm reading this correct. 86% of vacant and abandoned properties exist in distressed communities. Where is the memorandum of understanding or the community benefits agreement? If there is not one that exists now, will either one of you commit to having one addressed in your new administration or in your administration?
Okay, thank you so much. I think that the land bank has been a good thing for this community, but it needs to go much further. The vacant buildings is a gigantic problem. People have been talking about it for years and years. Nobody's actually done anything about it. I'm eager to work on that problem. I think I've got a good plan for working on that problem. I don't know whether such a memorandum exists. It's tough to get information sometimes. So one of the things I'd like to do as county executive is appoint a chief transparency officer to make sure that any county initiative is well known to the public, that every dollar that's being spent is known ahead of time, that every bid opportunity is out there in public, that nothing's hidden, that we have performance metrics for every county department visible so that you can see how well we're doing. So yes, I think it's very important that as we renovate these buildings, that they go to people who live in this community, not to speculators or people who live outside.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, I'll repeat the question for you, and it's rather lengthy. I'm sorry for the length of the question. Today's news conference and check presentation fulfills the $1 million investment by the county. 86% of vacant and abandoned properties exist in distressed communities. Is there a memorandum of understanding, or is there a community benefits agreement attached to this money or to this benefit or this program? And if there isn't one, will you commit to having, to negotiating one if you're elected?
Thank you. We did have our check presentation today, and the county did fulfill its obligation. But as I'm putting together the 2016 budget for next year, I had meetings with Majority Leader Frank Camiso, Chairman Sean Morris, Gil Ethier, and a few of the other leaders in the legislature. And we committed today another $500,000 to the land bank. So it's going to be $1.5 million. I don't know if people realize that the county keeps the taxes whole for the towns, cities, and villages where these houses are at. So, you know, it's a long thing that we have not done anything with these abandoned buildings because, quite frankly, in the city, you didn't have to address it because we kept you whole with taxes in the school. So why bother with something when you're being paid for it? We have adjusted. And actually, when we did the check presentation in Cohoes today, we talked about how we have a local minority contractor that is going to be working on that building. We are trying to commit to that stuff. So these funds are utilized with local contractors in that area where these houses are at, with a lot of input from the residents. There's like 32 people on the board. I would say go to a meeting, and there's a lot to learn from that. And we still, you know, we got to improve on it. We got to make it better. But we talk about transparency. Go to Albany County website. I take pride in this. Over 3.5 years ago, we have the most transparent website in the state of New York. We have see-through Albany County. Took it from the state. So you can go there and you can look at how your tax dollars are spent, and you can go online and you can see it. We also have CAD meetings where 3 people meet in a room for contracts under $100,000. I videotape it every month, put it on the computer, it goes live in the agenda. We can tell you who has take-home cars, who has cell phones. You can go in there and you can find out all the information. Just take the time and explore it. There's a lot of great information on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. This next question is rather brief, and I might want to expand on it a little bit to try to maybe give you a little context. The question is, what do you think about redistricting? And I think perhaps, Mr. McCoy, you can answer that in any way you wish in terms of the lawsuit or in terms of the proposal that's before the county legislature. How you want to handle that is up to you, sir. But you have 2 minutes. What do you think about the redistricting?
2 minutes is not enough time to get into this long, drawn-out question. People, it's about politics. That's all I'm going to tell you. Get involved and find out what's going on with redistricting. It was all about politics. I settled for $500,000 with a 5th minority district. The legislature decided they didn't want to settle, and the other side didn't. They wanted to hold off the elections to 2016. And I said this in the judges' chambers. I can go halfway around this world defending this country for people's freedoms, for people have the right to vote. And I'd be damned if I was going to let my own Democratic Party fix elections so they could run in 2016. And I said, if it was so important to have a 5th minority district, Why are you willing to go to the table in 2 years instead of 1? Because that was the proposal. That's what my job as the CEO of the county is to negotiate all contracts. And it's the job of the legislature to either approve it or not approve it. They didn't approve my plan. We offered $500,000. They offered $850 to go to election in 2016. And hence, we decided to go back in court because they voted it down. That's the short synopsis of it. But I do believe there should have been a 5th district, especially what's going on around this nation. We need the heal to come together. There can't be any more dividers. Let's not use politics with color, with the race that's going on. Let's use it to come together and build off of it for this county, because the residents of this county deserve better than politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, again, the same question. What do you think about the redistricting? And I'll ask you to interpret that question in any way you wish in terms of the previous lawsuit or the proposal that I guess is before that's been put forth by the legislature.
We had a great senator once, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who said everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own set of facts. So I guess we're going to differ on the facts here. Albany County, 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago, put together a districting plan for the legislature that was deeply flawed. It was found to be illegal in federal court. It was a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act. The architect of that plan is sitting next to me. The county then went to court, and folks here in this community had to sue the county for the right of equal representation in their own legislature. You know, I've lived in Albany County almost all my life. I love it here, but I was ashamed of my own government at that point. People should not have to go to court in order to have fair representation of their own government. But they did, and they prevailed in court. And now, the judge has already ruled on that. The county was wrong, wrong, wrong. So I support fair representation, of course. I don't support going deeper and deeper into a hole of lawsuits when you know you're wrong. And so had I been county executive, I would not have done that. Now, what's pending before the court is the bill for all of this, for all this bad judgment and this unethical conduct. And the plaintiffs have asked for $7 million. I don't know what that number will end up being. None of us knows right now, but it's going to be a lot more than zero. And you know, sometimes people need to have a big fine to get them to do the right thing, unfortunately. I think going forward, what do? We have to do redistricting again. We do it at every census, and if the size of the legislature should change, we'll have to do it. We need to have a truly independent commission going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. For you, Mr. Egan, first, in regards to fully funding senior programs, do you believe in waiting lists for senior programs such as EISEP? If yes, why? And how do you plan on handling these programs in the future?
Thank you. Yeah, I believe we should fully fund our senior programs. We have the funds to do that, and we should fully fund it. We should not put people on waiting lists in the absence of financial distress. Now, there was a time a few years ago during a worldwide economic crisis, the biggest one since the 1930s, when governments at all levels were short of funds. We had to do a lot of cutting. It was a tough time. At times like that, when you truly do not have the funds to do the job, then you can justify putting people on a waiting list for some services, although you've got to be very careful in the judgments of how you do that. What you don't want is elderly, frail, low-income people put on waiting lists. And that's what happened. That's what happened in the Department of Aging a couple of years ago when there was money available. The county executive requested and the legislature approved over $2 million to be spent on the ISIP program. That's a program that provides care short of nursing home care for people so they can stay in their homes, get help with grocery shopping, bathing, things of that nature, assistance in the home. It's a very cost-effective program. Most people want to stay in their homes if they can. That program, the money for that program was diverted elsewhere. And in August 2013, at that point in time, there were 147 seniors on a waiting list. And several of them moved away, some of them went into the nursing home, but 39 of them died on that waiting list, not provided services by Albany County. So I don't think that the county should be putting people on waiting lists if it can be avoided, and in this case, it absolutely could have been avoided. My plan would be to fully fund that program and other senior programs that have been cut to make sure that our most vulnerable citizens get the support that they've earned from this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy.
Need the question. I'm all right.
Okay.
You know, the ISIP program is this. It's for people not meet the poverty level and that don't meet Medicaid levels, but might need assistance for laundry, prepping meals, that type of stuff, house cleaning. And so there's no medical care that's tied into ISIP. But to be accused twice now, especially with my family in the room, that I did something that caused 39 deaths is outrageous and unbecoming of any candidate. Maybe the moderator wasn't listening, but I can assure you, being a combat vet and going halfway around this world, we teach people during reintegration one fine thing. The stupidest question someone's gonna come up to you and say, did you kill anybody? And for me to stand here with someone like that, to sit there and say, he caused 39 deaths, it's just, it breaks my heart. And I apologize to my mother and to my family. There is no one on the waiting list for ISIP. We are the most generous county in the Capital District. No one puts more money in that program than Albany County. There's federal funding and state funding, and we have to match it. We go above our match. Shame on the legislators that were there.
There be no interruptions from the audience. Please allow the candidate to respond to the question. The question, he was responding to the question.
Thank you. I'll end it there.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. The next question will be put to you first, sir. Mr. McCoy, please, we will not have editorial comments from the audience. We're trying to do this in an orderly fashion where you allow the candidates to respond to questions that have been pre-screened. The idea is to get to know their ideas for leadership and governing. While we appreciate your comments, they should be made privately at the conclusion of the program. Thank you. Mr. McCoy, the next question, and that will be to you first, sir. What are your plans to diversify the workforce in Albany County?
You know, when I was in the legislature for my 12 years there, I served with this gentleman called Bill Clay, the county legislator. And we used to announce, we have the pleasure of being in the legislature, of confirming everybody that the county executive appoints to different commissioner spots throughout the county. And I used to watch Bill Clay get up, and he's an African-American man if people don't know him. And he would say, yes, this person's qualified, but when are we gonna find someone of color? And you could just read it in his face. So when I became county executive, I said, we have to diversify our workforce to reflect the people that we represent. And I have done that, but there's still much more work to do. You know, from our alternate public defender's office to our HR to our veteran services, we have changed, but we do have more to do. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. We're appointing more minorities and women to positions than ever before in this county, and I take pride in that, but we have to do more. That's where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, what are your plans to diversify the workforce in Albany County?
Thank you. The plan has to be to have the staff of Albany County look like Albany County, like all the people in Albany County, and to make sure that we're representing every community. And if you look at who's on my campaign team right now, campaigns are often considered kind of the prototype for the administration. You'll see that diversity. I'm proud of that diversity. I love that diversity. I'm proud that in Albany Public Schools there are 40 languages spoken, 40 languages. And we've got almost that many on our campaign team. We've got one guy who speaks 5 or 6 languages at least. And that's terrific. That is a source of strength. It's one of the greatest sources of strength in this community. Because when we come together and we have diverse ideas, diverse backgrounds in age and ethnicity, in neighborhood, in town, that's when we do our best work. A diverse team, well-led, is the strongest team you can have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. For you, Mr. Egan, the nursing home appears stable. What do you plan to do for those needing long-term care who want to remain in the community?
The nursing home is stable thanks to the county legislature. They stabilized it, and that's a great thing. We need to have a public nursing home. It needs to stay public. That's simple. For other services, we need to make sure they're fully funded, and I think we need to have one leader in charge of all aging services, both the nursing home and the other related services, to make sure that there's seamless management of all aging services so that we know exactly what services a person should have, when they need to transition or when they don't, and make sure the funding's there for people who want to stay in their homes. Most people want to stay in their homes as long as they can, and when you have a top quality leader in charge of aging, we'll make sure that that happens. We'll make sure that the funding is there, and we can do this. We can do this, and our seniors deserve that. They've spent a lifetime living and working in this community, contributing to this community. I've talked to a lot of them. They want to stay in their homes, but whether they're in their own homes or in a facility, one of the other things they want to do, they want to keep contributing. They want to keep contributing. I talked to some folks the other day who were in their late 60s. They are not ready to stop working. They want to work, and I think the thing to do is to put them to work mentoring our young people because they've got so much wisdom and so much experience. Let's put them together with our young people. They need that experience and that wisdom, and that way they'll be there to do some chores for some of their older friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. I'll repeat the question, Mr. McCoy. The nursing home appears stable. What do you plan to do for those needing long-term care who want to remain in the community?
I take pride in what we've done with the nursing home turning around in a partnership with the legislature. Without a partnership, because that's what government's about, working together. There's over 60,000 seniors. There's over 60,000 seniors living longer in Albany County wanting to stay home. And I'll back up what I just said. I'm proud of the partnership with the legislature. I'm proud that we work together. We agreed to disagree, but we came together with a solution to stabilize the nursing home for the future. But some of the things we're doing, we're adding more programs for seniors to stay home. We're going to actually make an announcement next week on one of them. But one of the other partnerships that we're doing is working with Albany Med on the DSRIP, so we can put medical offices in our nursing home so they can get the care they need without being shipped out, whether it be dialysis or other x-rays or whatever it may be. They can get it done right there in our nursing home. So we are on top of everything else as we branch out to the seniors. I've visited every town, city, and village, every place that has a senior center. We're working in conjunction with them. And actually, I'm working with Mayor Sheehan to try to get a senior center back here in the city of Albany. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I've been reminded by some of the other volunteers that I keep getting more and more questions, and the applause, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, it cuts down on the time in which we can put questions to the candidates. And our hope is to put as many questions to the candidates as possible in the limited amount of time we have. Mr. McCoy, the next question for you first. What have and will you do for veterans?
I don't know where to begin to end. Veterans. You know what? We've been at war in this great nation for almost 15 years. 15 years. Most of you probably haven't felt it. But being a combat vet and being in the National Guard for over 26 years of my life and still serving today, I take pride in that. I take a lot of pride in that. We owe to help these veterans returning home, because most of these young veterans that have been on active duty, the only thing they've trained for is war. All they know is war. Not like Vietnam, you did 1 year, you came home, you're done. Multiple tours. A 23-year-old kid has served 4 years in combat overseas. We have veterans from World War II and Vietnam and Korea that didn't serve that long. Now they're coming out and they're being discharged. We're downsizing the military force right now. We need to assist them. There's more homeless veterans on the streets, more women than ever before, more drug use, more issues going on with PTSD. So in a partnership with Soldier On, we're opening up a first veterans campus of its like in New York State at the old nursing home, where veterans will have housing, they'll have therapy, they'll have colleges, they can go and be veterans. We're also doing dormitories for college-age kids that come off so they can be with their peers, because a 23-year-old kid, even though he's dorming with a 23-year-old kid, has nothing in common, seeing too many horrors. So we're gonna put them with their people, and we're gonna be that shoulder for them to return on. Also, the Veterans Identifier that we put in DSS, we just got a national award for helping veterans, identifying the benefits that they get. Working with HADIS, working with all different organizations to really enhance the services for veterans. Doing the first veterans program, Sheriff Apple up at the jail, identifying offenders that are veterans and getting them right before they go out so they don't reoffend and have a place waiting for them when they come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, I'll repeat the question. What have or will you do for veterans?
Thank you. I want to just acknowledge the good work that the county executive has done for veterans. We've done a lot of good under his leadership. There's a lot of veterans supporting our campaign, and I just want to say we need to respect everything they've done. There are folks, there's a man in the room right now, Sam Singletary, who served 2 tours in Vietnam, so not everybody did 1 year. But one of the things we need to do is end veteran homelessness. It's great to have programs, but there shouldn't be any veteran in Albany County who is homeless, and we need to establish a place for that and make sure that that does not happen.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. For you, Mr. Egan, first, what are you doing or what would you do about the heroin drug crisis in Albany County?
Addiction is a terrible problem, and we have been treating addictions and drugs absolutely wrongly for several generations now. We've been treating it as a criminal problem, and that's the wrong approach. It needs to be a public health problem. It needs to be a public health issue and a therapy issue. I'm very familiar with this. I'm descended from people who had severe addictions. My grandfather was an addict. And one of my children is in a sober home right now. So this is very personal to me. We need to do the right things. We need to stop criminalizing low-level drug issues. These folks do not need to be in jail. They need to be in sober living conditions with top-notch therapy. We need to work with law enforcement to stop the drugs from coming in. But this is not a criminal issue. This is an issue of folks who need help. They need stable families. They need job opportunities, all the other things we've been talking about. But you know what? You wouldn't criminalize someone if they came to you and said, gee, I have cancer. You wouldn't blame them for their problem. You wouldn't say they must have some character flaw because they contracted cancer. Let's not do that with heroin addicts or alcohol addicts or anyone else. It's not a character flaw. It's a physical problem. We need to treat it as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, what are you doing or would you do about the heroin drug crisis in Albany County?
You know, it's about partnerships, getting out in the community, and I want to thank Sheriff Apple for being the lead in Albany County and really highlighting what's going on. But what my office has done, we have started training. We've gone out throughout the county and done Narcan training to reverse a heroin overdose. Attorney General Snyderman was in Gilliland a couple years ago, and we started the Narcan training there and the kits to go out there. Is really to identify people, to get them how they can get these Narcan kits, but also is giving them an opportunity for a better way. And that's why I signed on with Mayor Sheen and Chief Cox and Sheriff Apple and District Attorney Soares for the LEADS program. Because we do have to look at how we criminalize things for the future. And based on that Seattle program that we're following, and the Sheriff and I and the District Attorney went out to DC, to the White House, they had a conference on it. That's what we have to do, but it's taking a different approach, looking at something and saying, look, this model doesn't work, hasn't worked for 30, 40 years. We need to change it, and we're doing that in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. For you, Mr. McCoy, the next question. Do you support granting economic incentives for green energy development in Albany County?
What was the last part of that question?
I'll repeat it, sir. Do you support granting economic incentives for green energy development in Albany County?
Green energy, that's you know, I said earlier on, we got the Energy Star at 112 State Street. We're looking at 162. We're putting solar panels on the nursing home, the hockey facility, cogen for the airport, for the jail. All this green initiative stuff's going on, and we have NYSERDA who's been helping us with grants. So if that's what you're talking about, yes, there's grants out there that you can achieve to get that will offset the cost. I am all for green initiatives, and really, you know what, I know one of our legislators, Mike Mackey, had a resolution in saying about if people want to put solar panels on their houses and they want to do things, the county with the savings we're going to have going into the future, we should offset and try to help people go green. And if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Thank you. Mr. Egan, the question is, do you support granting economic incentives for green energy development in Albany County?
Absolutely. It's one of the most important things we've got to do. You know, I think for any policy we adopt, there's kind of a triple bottom line. Is the proposed policy right socially, economically, and environmentally? If it passes all those tests, then let's do it. There's so much that needs to be done. The age of fossil fuels is ending, and we can either plan our way towards that day or we can let the disaster happen. Right now, what we're doing as a nation, frankly, as an international community, is we are plowing straight ahead to disaster because we are not reducing our usage. We need to lead the way. And we could lead the way right here in Albany County to be as green as possible. Other communities have taken the initiative. You know, Philadelphia is trying to be the greenest city in the United States, and they're doing a lot of work on recycling to get there. Pittsburgh, where I'm frequently a visitor, has got all kinds of stuff going on with gray water use and with solar and with green walls and with permeable surfaces. And these are the kinds of things we need to be doing. We need to be going big on solar. When I was on the school board, we signed a contract to put solar panels on every single one of our public school buildings here in the city of Albany. We need to do that with our county buildings. We need to incentivize it for private buildings. So there's a lot of incentives out there already. Let's do it better. We can employ our folks in our community doing that work. You can't offshore those jobs. Somebody's got to do the work right here so we can create good jobs. So this is one of those great things, right? It's good socially because it's going to provide good jobs. It's good economically because many of the incentives are already there, and of course you save costs going forward on power. And it's good environmentally. It's great environmentally. Germany is leading the world right now, getting about 6.2% of their energy, of their electricity from solar panels. You probably know Germany's not an extremely sunny country. Albany has more sun than Germany. We can do it even better.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. For you, Mr. Egan, how do you reconcile energy independence with the oil trains that are traveling through and stationed through our county and city?
It depends on how you define energy independence. I favor a complete ban on any fracked oil trains coming into this community. A complete ban. So the question doesn't concern how we're going to get there, so I won't talk about that, but there's a lot of work to be done there. I believe energy independence can be achieved in a whole bunch of ways. It does not have to be based and should not be based on fossil fuels. Even though the price of oil has come way down, it's expected to come down further. That's not the right answer. The right answer is solar and wind and other renewables and reducing our usage of energy. Again, we can learn from other communities. Europeans, for example, have a very similar standard of living to us, but do it on far less energy usage per household. We've been in an economy for generations now where we treated energy almost as if it was free. We didn't pay a lot of attention to it. We have to stop doing that. We've made some progress there. We need to do a lot more, but our energy independence has to come from solar and wind. You know, there's a massive, massive, and very safe nuclear reactor that we can all use. It's called the sun. It provides all the power we will ever need. The amount of sunlight hitting the earth in an hour is about enough to provide all the power we need for a year. We got to collect it. And we can do that with a very large-scale solar program. That's the direction we need to go. And frankly, that is the only long-term real answer to how we're going to end some of our other problems related to these trains.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, I'll repeat the question. How do you reconcile energy independence with the oil trains that are traveling through and stationed through our county and city?
Thank you. We have the technology. You just got to have the will to go off the grid, and that's what we've been trying to do in Albany County by going green. My goal is to be totally off the grid for all county facilities. But you look at the train issue, you know, and it's in our backyard. And I stood up right away, didn't back down. We put a moratorium on the boilers. We've been fighting with Secretary Fox and NTSB and everyone else to stop the boilers, but most importantly, slow up the trains. And they listened to us. But they only listened to us for Erie County and for Yonkers and New York City. They didn't bother with the rest of the state of New York. We're continuing to fight that. We put an advisory committee together made of experts, Peter Iwanowitz, a doctor side out of New York City, that really came up with great conclusions of how to settle this problem with the trains. But we have to look at alternatives, and I agree. And one of the things is when we did the toxic ban for toys and we did the styrofoam containers in a partnership with the legislature, I had a restaurant owner say to me, "You're going to put us out of business. There's no containers. The food, we can't get the food out." They called me about 3 months later and they said, "Guess what? They came up with a biodegradable container." Wow. And that's the same thing with this. We just got to have the willpower to say, we're not going to use oil anymore. We're going to find alternatives. They're out there, solar panels. We can start turning your homes over. You can stop trying to drive your car and use transportation. We encourage you to use transportation, to take the carbon footprint away, to use the bikes. Use your bike to get to work. That's how you can fight back. And a barrel of oil is, yes, it's going to be down to about $24 a barrel. And it's slowing up, but it doesn't mean the problem's going away. Because once the oil goes back up again, these trains are going to be coming through our backyards. And I have a dual obligation as your county executive to make sure that stops. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. This is the penultimate question. That is the second to last question. For you, Mr. McCoy, while Albany County's suburban region has thrived, its urban areas have steadily declined. What will you do to make jobs and investment a priority in urban Albany County?
We're all one. When I go around this county and I visit Rensselaerville and Westerlo and Burn Knox and been out to Guilderland, I explain to everyone, what happens in the city of Albany affects all of us. When companies pull out of downtown Albany, it affects everybody because the crime's only going to go out throughout the whole county. They have just different crimes in different areas. So how do we change it? It's what I said earlier. Job creation. Bringing a college in downtown Albany, giving kids a different opportunity. That's how we're going to turn things around. And if you look at, again, the land bank, not to repeat myself, the land bank will change a lot of this because it will bring people back from the suburbs back into the cities. And if you want to take that carbon footprint away, then move back in and walk to work. Don't worry about having to drive. And think how much money you'll save. If you have to go from Voorheesville to downtown Albany, think how much gas money you're going to save. I've met people that move back into the city of Albany and saying, you know what, I'm saving $30 a week in gas alone, not traveling back and forth. That's how we're going to change it. But working in a partnership with everyone in the county as one and coming up for a solution for all the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Egan, I'll repeat the question. While Albany County's suburban region has thrived, its urban areas have steadily declined. What will you do to make jobs and investment a priority in urban Albany County?
We have to look at the history here. When you look at any problem, you have to ask yourself, how did we get that way? There were not extensive suburbs in this country 70 years ago, and they didn't develop by magic. They developed because of government policies that subsidized that development. So that was a different era. We're in a new era now. We're in an era of intense environmental threat. We're in an era of many racial challenges that we have got to address openly and honestly and courageously with each other, in partnership with each other. But we need to look at what are our major policies that drive investment into the suburbs and residents into the suburbs and away from the cities, and there's a lot there. Who paid for all those highways? You know, President Obama attracted a lot of attention a couple of years ago when he said, you didn't build that. And that phrase got misinterpreted by a lot of people, but all he was saying is the infrastructure of this country was built by all the people in this country, and everyone depends on it. Well, we've built up infrastructure to favor some types of development over others. We've got to change those policies. Instead of building more highways and instead of building more parking lots, the last parking lot should have already been built. We need to do redevelopment here in our communities, in downtown. Housing is the key, but also rehabbing streets, planting lots of trees. You know, one tree does the work of many air conditioners, but you don't have to plug it into anything. And people like being around trees. People like being around walkable neighborhoods. They like being around old architecture that's well maintained. And we can do that and put our kids to work and give them great job skills that'll be valuable for them for the rest of their lives. So this combination of rehabbing homes, a large-scale apprenticeship program to create jobs and opportunity and the dignity of work for everyone, that's how we're going to rebuild our urban core. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And your last question, and I'll direct this to you, Mr. Egan, first. What is the most important issue to you, and how are you going to solve it?
Most important issues to me are economic development for everyone. That's the most important issue facing Albany County. What we have right now is a very well-known system of pay-to-play where some people do very well and many people are left behind. We've got to change that. We've got to work together to change that. And the way we do that is large-scale apprenticeship programs, is rebuilding our urban neighborhoods, is having effective social services programs. You know, we're in the bottom half of upstate counties in the provision of food stamps to those who are eligible. If we were as good as Schenectady County at this, we'd be bringing in over $1 million of federal money to this community every month. That would be a tremendous stimulus to this community because that money will go to the people who need it the most. It will go directly to them. It will feed children so that they can do better in school. That money will be spent at our corner stores, at our mom and pop corner stores, and at our regional grocery chains. That'll be great for this economy. If I stood on the corner out there and I said, I can get you a federal grant that'll bring in $1 million a month, you'd say, wow, how can you do that? Well, it's as simple as making sure that our food stamp program operates correctly. We can do that. We can bring in the jobs. We can support our small businesses. We can lower the hassle factor for them to make sure that they can operate. All those things together with a diverse leadership team, we can make this happen and have economic development that works for everyone, not for the few.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, I'll repeat the question. What is the most important issue to you, and how are you going to solve it?
You know, that's like a loaded question because there's so many important topics. And some of the I take pride in is solving the issue at a nursing home, that deficit that's been going on for all these years. But the Indigent Defense Fund, two-tier system, that to me is so important that we write that. So people that don't have the right to fight for themselves and can't hire that high-power attorney get the same representation as the person with $1 million in their bank book. You know, expanding our senior services. We have over 60,000 seniors living longer and giving them the services. But also looking at, I think Bill Clinton said it right, tap our senior resources and learn from them. Because you can learn more from at the feet of a senior than you can read in a book any day. And we need to tap that type of resources to bring it back into the county to help with creations of not making mistakes, but giving people an opportunity to learn things differently than off the internet or out of a book, but from a living person. These are things that I take pride in, that we can continue to change, to bring our deficits down, to expand programs that have an impact on the quality of life with people like the Land Bank, like Project Growth. Different projects like that I take pride in. And then services from the dental clinic down at the Department of Health and mental health, helping people that have mental health issues and getting them back up on their feet and getting them back in society. These are programs that will make a difference in everybody's community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We now have reached the point in the program where the candidates will have 2 minutes to sum up before we break for the evening. Mr. Egan, by the luck of the coin toss, you go first, I believe.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. An engaged citizenry is the best defense against all the problems that ail us. When we all work together, when we're all engaged in the process, that's when we're going to make things happen. We've disagreed about a certain number of things tonight, but we seem to agree on one big thing, and that's that change is needed in Albany County. Both of us have talked about change, the need for change. And you know that old saying, if you keep on doing things the same way you were doing them before, don't expect different results. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank you for asking such great questions. The future of Albany County is in your hands, and that's as it should be. We're making history here this year. In the 40 years that we've had an Albany County executive, we've never had a Democratic primary for this position. So no matter what happens, it's fantastic that you have a choice. And as you choose who should be your next county executive, I want to ask you to think about who's better qualified in terms of their experience, their education, and their genuine progressive values. We can't anticipate every issue that's going to come up in Albany County over the next 4 years. But we've agreed tonight, and the voters are telling me at the doors, that we want change. The old ways of doing things aren't working in Albany County. We need a government with transparency, with integrity, and with efficiency. A government that works for all of us for a change. I'd like the opportunity to serve you as Albany County Executive, and I'd be honored to have your support on September 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. McCoy, to sum.
I've been humbled these last 3 years and 8 months in office. Humbled to be your county executive, and I would love to continue to have your support and be your county executive again in 2016. There's been a lot of bumps in the roads, but leadership starts at the top. Change in an organization's cohesiveness starts internally with yourself. And really leading by example, not using rhetoric and saying, yeah, this is how you should act, but act differently, speaks a lot about a candidate and the person themselves. I take pride in the way I've conducted myself these last 3 years and 8 months, and pride in the way I've conducted myself through this campaign. That's the leadership we need in Albany County. We need someone that's going to solve the issues. We're not always going to agree. Like I said earlier, we will agree to disagree on many topics, but we need to come together for the community and give them the opportunity that everyone deserves. But we can't do that finger pointing and saying this one should have done that and this person should have done that. But we can, working together, and I proved it, working with the 19 leaders in this county for the first time ever, having quarterly meetings since I've been in office, having office hours around this county, talking to the people, because I work for you at the end of the day. And it's what you want out of county government, not what I want to give you. It's what you want, what you see your government being in the future. And I said, and make no mistakes about it, when I ran in 2011, I said the government I leave behind is not the government you're going to find today, because we need to change for the people. We need to change for the times. I'm here to change for the times. I'm with you. I hope you're with me. See you September 10th.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Thank you, Mr. McCoy. On behalf of all of the sponsoring entities, we appreciate your coming out. Great attendance. We appreciate the fact that you were, for the most part, very attentive and orderly. And feel free to stay if the candidates have an opportunity. They may want to mix and mingle and talk to some of you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.